The blazing Lagos sun beat down on Ikeja's crowded streets. Amid the chaos of honking danfos and shouting hawkers sat Amaka, her faded wrapper clinging as she sold bananas by the roadside. Beside her, 9-year-old Kayamiko worked with surprising confidence, her bright eyes mirroring a face all too familiar. Just then, a sleek black Range Rover stopped at the light. Inside was Chief Obinna Okafor, billionaire mogul. One glance outside and his world stopped. There was Amaka, the wife he had abandoned. And the girl beside her looked exactly like him. Long before anyone ever called him Chief Obinna Okafor, he was just Obinna, the struggling son of a poor farmer from Anambra State. After secondary school, he had come to Lagos with only a small Ghana must-go bag, a borrowed 5,000 naira, and a heart full of big dreams. He hustled as a bus conductor during the day and worked as a night guard at a warehouse just to survive. It was during those rough years that he met Amaka. She was a student at the University of Lagos, selling akara by the roadside in the mornings to support herself and her younger siblings. One rainy morning, Obinna stopped at her akara stand, drenched and shivering. Amaka offered him a free piece with a smile, saying, "Eat something. One day you will pay me back." That small kindness lit a spark. From then on, Obinna kept returning, not just for akara but for the warmth in her voice and the encouragement in her eyes. Soon they became inseparable. When Obinna got his first small electronics shop in Alaba Market, Amaka was there every day after class, helping him arrange second-hand radios and count the little profit they made. She cooked for him when he had no money, stood by him when landlords insulted him for unpaid rent, and encouraged him when business looked like it would collapse. They married in a simple church ceremony, no big money, no asoebi, just close friends and family who believed in their love. Amaka wore a borrowed lace gown, and Obinna proudly put a small gold ring on her finger. They promised each other forever, even if they had to fight hunger together. And fight they did. Some nights, Gary and groundnuts was all they had. Other nights, they went to bed hungry, consoling each other with laughter and dreams of a brighter tomorrow. Yet Amaka never complained. She often said, "Obi, don't worry. One day the world will hear your name." Obinna never forgot those words. He worked harder, took bigger risks, and slowly began to see results. The small shop became 2, then 3. Importers started trusting him, and he began to make connections with powerful men in Lagos. But what neither of them knew was that with the rise of wealth would come the beginning of cracks in their once unshakable love. Obinna's hustle soon paid off. By his mid-30s, his name had become well known in Alaba Market. He was no longer the young man begging suppliers for credit. He was the one shipping in entire containers of electronics from China. His bank account fattened, his shop expanded, and his circle of friends shifted from struggling traders to high-powered businessmen, politicians, and socialites. With wealth came a new lifestyle. Expensive cars. A mansion in Lekki. Weekends at 5-star hotels. His once simple Igbata was replaced with designer suits. And though Amaka had walked every step of the journey with him, Obinna began to feel that she no longer fit into his new world. The first sign came when Amaka suggested they remain in their modest Surulere home, even after Obinna bought the Lekki mansion. "Obi, do we really need all this?" she asked one night. But Obinna brushed her off. "Amaka, you don't understand. People of my level cannot be living like that anymore." Soon, he began missing family dinners, returning late from meetings and parties. Amaka would wait for him, but when she asked questions, he dismissed her as being too local or too suspicious. The once inseparable couple began to feel worlds apart. Then came Chioma, a young, glamorous woman he met at a high-class event on Victoria Island. She was everything Amaka was not in that new environment: bold, flashy, connected. She turned heads wherever she went, and Obinna, drunk on success, was drawn to her like a moth to fire. Rumors spread quickly. Amaka heard whispers from friends and even from market women who pitied her. When she confronted Obinna, he laughed it off at first, but his absences grew longer and his excuses thinner. Eventually, the truth stood bare. Obinna was keeping Chioma in a luxury apartment, showering her with gifts, and parading her at society events while Amaka stayed at home. The breaking point came one evening during a heated argument. Amaka cried, "After everything I suffered with you, Obinna? I was with you when you had nothing. Is this how you repay me?" But Obinna, hardened by pride and blinded by his new life, coldly replied, "Amaka, you wouldn't understand. The world I move in now requires a different kind of woman." Those words cut deeper than a knife. Within months, the marriage collapsed. Their divorce was quick and brutal. Despite Amaka's sacrifices, Obinna offered her little more than a small settlement, barely enough to survive. With her dignity intact but her heart shattered, she walked away, holding tightly to the one thing Obinna didn't know about yet, the life growing inside her. Life after Obinna was nothing short of brutal for Amaka. She left the marriage with little more than her clothes, a few kitchen utensils, and the small settlement Obinna grudgingly gave her. Friends who once envied her position as a billionaire's wife began to avoid her. Some mocked her behind her back, whispering, "See her life now. From Lekki mansion to selling pepper in the market." But Amaka refused to break. She rented a tiny one-room apartment in Ajij, its zinc roof leaking whenever it rained. It was in that small space that she gave birth to her daughter, Kayamika. Alone in the world, Amaka cut pieces of cloth to use as diapers, sang lullabies when the baby cried from hunger, and whispered prayers each night that God would provide. To survive, she tried everything. First, she sold second-hand clothes in the market. When that failed, she worked as a cleaner in a small school. Later, she began frying puff-puff and akara by the roadside, waking at 4 a.m. to grind beans. Each venture brought little, but Amaka carried herself with quiet dignity, never once begging Obinna for help. When Kayamika turned 7, school fees became another mountain to climb. Determined that her daughter would never be denied an education, Amaka started selling bananas at a busy junction. Every morning, she tied her wrapper firmly, balanced a tray of bananas on her head, and set out with Kayamika by her side. At first, the humiliation burned. Old acquaintances would pass by, pretending not to see her. Some even laughed openly. So this is Chief Obinna's former wife? Selling bananas? But Amaka learned to tune out the noise. She focused on her daughter, who had inherited her father's sharp features and commanding presence. Despite the hardship, Kayamika was bright, curious, and hardworking. She helped her mother arrange the bananas neatly, smiled sweetly at customers, and ran to fetch change with the speed of lightning. Sometimes when Amaka looked at her daughter's face, the same eyes, the same smile as Obinna, her heart twisted with pain. Yet she reminded herself, "This child is my joy, my blessing, my reason to keep moving." Though life was far from easy, Amaka raised her daughter with discipline and hope. She taught her to pray, to study hard, and never to feel ashamed of their struggle. Little did Amaka know that fate was about to bring her face to face with the man who had abandoned her, and that moment would shake not only her world but Obinna's as well. It was a Friday afternoon, the streets of Ikeja swollen with the usual chaos. Cars honked impatiently, Danfo conductors screamed destinations, and the smell of roasted corn and suya hung in the air. Chief Obinna Okafor sat in the back of his black Range Rover, scrolling through his phone as his driver crawled through the traffic. He had just returned from a business trip in Dubai, his mind busy with plans for an upcoming deal that would add millions of dollars to his empire. The car rolled to a halt at a red light, and Obinna casually glanced out of the window. What he saw made his heart skip. There, by the roadside, under a faded umbrella, sat Amaka. Her wrapper was worn, her sandals dusty, and her face carried lines of struggle he didn't remember. On a small table in front of her were neatly arranged bananas. She sat upright, refusing to look defeated, but her eyes told a story of years of pain. Beside her stood a young girl, confidently handing bananas to a customer. She couldn't have been more than 9 years old. Her smile, the tilt of her head, even the way she furrowed her brows when counting money, it was like looking at a younger version of himself. Obinna felt his throat tighten. He removed his sunglasses and leaned forward, staring hard at the child. "It can't be." "Driver, stop here," he commanded, his voice unsteady. The car eased to the side of the road. For the first time in years, Obinna felt something money could not control. Fear. Fear of the truth staring him in the face. Amaka looked up just then. Their eyes met. For a brief moment, the busy Lagos street seemed to fall silent. The woman he had abandoned, the woman who once believed in his dreams, was now struggling to survive on the roadside. And the little girl beside her carried his very blood. Obinna stepped out of the Range Rover slowly, his fine Agbada swaying in the breeze. Heads turned, it wasn't every day a billionaire parked by the roadside in Ikeja. Some hawkers whispered his name, others simply stared in awe. But Obinna's eyes were fixed only on Amaka. She stiffened the moment she saw him walking toward her. The tray of bananas nearly slipped from her hands, but she steadied herself quickly. Straightening her shoulders, she met his gaze with a coldness that made his chest tighten. "Amaka," his voice cracked, the name heavy on his tongue. She cut him off sharply. What are you doing here, Chief Obinna? Have you come to laugh? To see how low I've fallen? Her words stung like pepper on fresh wounds. Obinna swallowed hard, his eyes shifting to the little girl who was now staring at him curiously. What's her name? He asked, pointing gently toward the child. Amaka's lips trembled, but her pride wouldn't let her show weakness. Her name is Kayamika. And before you ask, yes, she is your daughter. Obinna's knees almost gave way. He stared at the girl, at the undeniable resemblance. The nose, the eyes, even the dimple on her left cheek, it was like a mirror of his younger self. He took a step closer. Amaka, why didn't you tell me? Amaka's eyes blazed with fury. Tell you? When you left me for that girl in Victoria Island. When you said I was no longer the kind of woman you wanted by your side. I carried this child alone, Obinna. I suffered, I starved, I struggled, while you were busy flying around the world with Chioma. Her voice shook, but her pride held steady. Kayamika, sensing the tension, slipped her small hand into her mother's, her innocent eyes darting between them. For the first time in years, Obinna felt powerless. No business deal, no amount of wealth could save him from the truth standing before him. For a long moment, Obinna could not speak. His chest felt heavy, his throat dry. The street noises around him faded. All he could hear was the pounding of his own heart. He dropped to his knees right there on the dusty roadside, shocking both Amaka and the passers-by who had begun to gather. The great Chief Obinna Okafor, billionaire businessman, brought low before a woman selling bananas and a child he barely knew. Amaka, I wronged you, he whispered, his voice breaking. I abandoned the only person who truly believed in me. I destroyed our home, and in doing so, I missed the chance to be a father to her. His eyes flicked to Kayamika, who clutched her mother's hand tightly. Tears rolled down his face, leaving streaks on his cheeks. It was a sight no one expected, the untouchable mogul humbled by regret. He turned to the little girl. Kayamika, my daughter, please forgive me. I was blind. I let pride and money destroy me. His hands trembled as he reached toward her. Kayamika tilted her head, confused. She had seen her mother cry before, but never this man. Something in her innocent heart softened, yet she looked up at Amaka for guidance. Amaka's lips pressed tightly together. Her own tears threatened to fall, but she held them back. She had suffered too much to melt easily at Obinna's display. Still, the sight of him on his knees stirred emotions she thought had long died. The crowd around them whispered in disbelief. Some took out their phones to record, others shook their heads, murmuring, "Nawao, even billionaires day cry." Amaka looked at Obinna, the man she once loved, the man who had broken her heart, now begging on his knees. For years she had dreamed of this moment, of him realizing the weight of what he'd done. Yet standing here she felt no triumph, only a deep, tired ache. "Obinna," she said firmly, "I don't need your money. I don't need your pity. All I ever wanted was respect and for you to stand by me when life was tough. That time has passed. I survived without you and I will continue to survive. My only concern now is my daughter." Obinna bowed his head, ashamed. He had expected anger, maybe even forgiveness, but her strength humbled him more than her words. At that moment, little Kayamika let go of her mother's hand and stepped toward Obinna. Her small fingers touched his wet cheek. "Daddy," she said softly. Obinna broke down again, pulling her into his arms. Amaka turned her face away, her heart torn. So, dear viewer, wealth can buy houses, cars, and fame, but it cannot buy loyalty, love, or lost time. Cherish the ones who stood by you when you had nothing. Because in the end, true riches are not in your bank account, but in the hearts of those who never gave up on you. If you've been touched by this story, then you'll find many more just like it here on AfriVibe Stories. Real tales, raw truths, and everyday experiences that reflect the lives of Africans everywhere. So don't just stop here. Make sure you explore more stories, share them with others, and stay with us as we continue to give voice to the struggles and triumphs that shape who we are.